Welcome to the Sooner or Later podcast, part of the Unfair Sports Network. We appreciate you pulling up wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to, as well as checking us out here on YouTube. While you're here, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and the bell notification. And if you're listening, rate us, review us, and give us 5 stars. You think we deserve it? Give us five anyway and gift it. So on today's episode of the Sooner or Later podcast, me and Coop's going to dive into the Sooners in the Super Bowl and how they performed, and our thoughts behind that. We're going to talk about OU's schedule. I'm going to actually give you predictions on which games we think is going to win and who we think we're going to lose if we lose any games. OU and Texas head to the SEC a little bit early, as well as wrapping things up on some 2024 recruiting news. What little names we're hearing, what information is flying out of the stratosphere. So, Coop, what's going on, man? How's it going?
Hey, listen, today is officially the end of football season. Now it is speculation. If you're in the NFL, everybody, even my Broncos, have hope in the future, and everybody is undefeated in the college football ranks, and so everybody's got delusions of grandeur, sparkling and twinkling in their eyes.
Yeah, we're at that time of the year where everybody believes they have a chance of actually doing something we know in all actuality we really don't. But it's a good time though, man. That optimism is good. It's what keeps the blood boiling for fans. You know, it's the only reason why we survive, right?
Yeah,
Even though I
100%.
know a lot of fans are really pessimistic, which is kind of fascinating. That the optimism is what keeps us going, but we're still quite pessimistic. So. Anywho, but outside of that, man, Super Bowl. We're gonna jump and start off with that. I of course recorded a pod just talking about Super Bowl itself. You can find that, on the Unfair Sports Network. But Coop, man, looking at the performance, honestly, by the Sooners that were actually out there, we had a lot of OU players playing in the Super Bowl this year, which gotta say is a testament to what this school has done, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the graphics were going out at the early in the playoffs about how many from each college were in the playoffs, and it looks like NFC Championship it really blew up, because OU was the most well represented, and then you saw on Sunday night, we're doing this on Monday, so last night, my key to the game was Philly's defensive line going against the Chiefs' offensive line. And I said they're going to have to keep Mahomes up, and because Mahomes is going to go Mahomes, and he's going to scramble, he's going to step up in the pocket, and Zeus Orlando Brown has a tweet out today, and it says 0 sacks given up. Put that shit on a t-shirt, and they kept him clean. The only time that he got hit was kind of going into halftime, and he stepped up in the pocket and took off, and somebody kind of fell on the ankle, rolled over on the ankle. But with Creed and Zeus up there on the offensive line, and if you listen to any sports updates on anything, you get to hear James Winchester's name mentioned, for the game-winning field goal, and so it's good. Now, if that penalty doesn't happen and Philly gets the ball, you got the runner-up in Jalen Hurts taking the ball with some significant time left to go see what they could do. And I think we deserved overtime, a Super Bowl overtime, because it was just a good game. And
Yeah.
I think that if Jalen Hurts has the time to come back and lead a touchdown, touchdown drive, he's the MVP. So you can't, you got to say this. I mean, the time ran short, and unlike the last time we saw the Sooners in the playoffs, it was extremely competitive, and nobody really fell short of the mark or the predictions when it comes to the Sooners, at least.
Yeah, no, it was a fun game overall. It's probably one of the better games we've had in the
Yeah,
last 10 years. Easily in the top three in the last 10, probably 20 years. I mean, most of them are not. We haven't had I'd say about 50% of them are close in score where it's coming to the end. I think
yeah,
about that Ravens and the 49ers game. I think about that, even that Rams and Bengals game was not bad. It just was not
no,
that great, but it was close.
riveting.
So it was still one of those
Yeah,
that was that needed to have one. Somebody had to go out there and win, of course, but it was more so. It wasn't just exciting. Like this game was exciting. It was a back and forth, and looking at it, let's look at some of the players that, of course, represented Oklahoma out there. So, of course, OU decided to put out some billboards in celebration of the players we had out there. So, of course, you got
That's
Big
awesome.
Zeus Orlando Brown. You got Blake Bell, who's still on the Chiefs roster. You got Creed Humphreys, who's one of the best, if not the best center in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
And then you said Jay Winchester was another one that got some love. Sooners put out billboards in each city. You get your Kansas City players, and then you saw your Philly guys. You got your Jalen Hurts, which shout out to both OU and Alabama for going ahead and deciding to have joint custody of Jalen Hurts. You saw the Roll Sooners and the Boomer Tide going around, which was pretty dope. I'm glad that
Yeah.
both the schools at least could mend the
Collaborate.
differences and point out and collaborate and point out the fact that Jalen
Yeah.
playing at both schools. He really showed out at Oklahoma. His coming out party was at Oklahoma because of the development, to the old regime and Lincoln Riley being a really good quarterback whisperer. But I saw the video from Nick Saban really telling him like, "Hey, man, I know you really want to go to Maryland, but
Hmm.
you're better served going to Oklahoma. They develop quarterbacks. Go there. They will get you the pocket presence ability that you need and the ability to read the defenses you need to get better for the next level." And sure enough, it showed up. And so you got him and Lane Johnson. And then the Eagles got a few players, like we talked about in the green room, that actually are on the practice squad, from Kennedy Brooks and Grant Calcaterra. I didn't realize Calcaterra was still playing. So I appreciate you telling me that information.
Yeah.
It's great to see that he
And
was out there.
Tyrese Robinson off this last Sooner team, the last Lincoln Riley team. So he's on the practice squad too. So yeah, I mean, when it breaks down to it, you've got nine Sooners, and again, just even though this isn't 4 or 5 guys in the first round type of a year, more guys are going to continue to find roster spots, and you're going to see
Hmm.
more and more, and it's again, we're still, even though the recruiting has been not as terrific, or some of the turnouts of the 2018, 2019, 2020 classes, we're still seeing guys make it. So it's good to
Yeah.
see guys like James Winchester, who's probably the best long snapper. Creed, Lane, and Orlando, they're Pro Football Focus's top 10 offensive linemen up for the year. So that's three
Hmm.
Sooners right there, and I mean that's something that's pretty neat. And again, you said maybe the best center in the league. I think number two, if it's Creed, number two is Jason Kelsey, and who's on the Eagles. So it was really good game. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, same. Agreed. And then if you want to talk linemen to go with that group of them, you go Big Trent Williams. He's out there
Hmm.
as the monster in the NFL that throws people down like crazy. But of course, the Sooners went ahead and bought a final billboard, sending out the shout out to the champions that were on the roster. Congratulations to our Sooners with the Jordan logo and everything
That's
or
awesome.
whatnot. And so, yeah, super dope what Oklahoma did for their people. Tells and shows exactly what this program is. And so overall, like I said, Super Bowl was fun. It was a good time. I'm so glad that these Sooners were able to get out there and really show out. And so let's jump over into the next thing, man. We've got the schedule came out. And so, talked about this in a video a while back, and was telling you all that with the new schedule, the Big 12 finally released the schedule, and we've got who Oklahoma's going to play, who Oklahoma's got. And I'm ready to really sit down here and talk about who I think we're going to beat and who we ain't. So, Coop, you got to look at that schedule, right? How do you feel on the first glance before we jump into game by game? First glance, how did you feel about that?
I believe it's Avengers, when Black Widow finds Hawkeye and he's turned into this massive killer, and she says, "There's a chance we can bring them all back," and he says, "Don't you give me hope." When I look at this, when I look at this, there's two ways I see this. Number one, um, I mean, if I was a ticket buyer, or if I had season tickets and I was paying for that home lineup, woof. It's a pretty bad home lineup. But this will be the last time that it's this much of a joke. Again, this is a middle finger to the Big 12 on the way out the door. I think, given they don't want us to take that ticket price. We are a big draw wherever anybody goes. I promise you that. Um, that's great for Tulsa, but Cincinnati, hey, listen, we're going to Cincinnati and BYU, two newcomers, get OU. What opponent draws like in Oklahoma that Cincinnati has played here recently? I don't think anybody. BYU is a different story because they do attract some bigger marquee games, but all in all, when you as a season ticket holder, not so much. But when I look at this and I just try to wrap my heads around, we don't have Baylor, who we lost to, and I expect them to be good this year. We don't have who is it? We have
Kansas State.
TCU. No Kansas State, and again, Kansas State's been a bitch for us for years, and
Let
for
me pull
since
this
the
up.
last time that we really dropped it on Kansas State was when we unveiled the belldozer. We
Yep.
went out, we lost to Texas. We come out with the belldozer, and I think it was like 55-0 or something like that. That's the last time that we really well handled Kansas State at home or on the road. But Jay, I'm not crazy. This is a very, very winnable schedule. I don't. Cincinnati is going to be ultra depleted. They're going to have tons of transfers, a lot of draft people, new coaching staff, new regime coming in. Iowa State, I think that they're going to surprise people a little bit, but we get them at home. Um, I'm not one that thinks that Texas is better. I think they're more of the same this year. Um, and then Oklahoma State, like that. What does that roster look like? You look at TCU; they lost everything. They lost absolutely everything. They've got some talent transferred in. They've got a lot of former 5 stars from Bama that came in. But I mean, if somebody came to me and was like, "I think that Oklahoma is going to go undefeated in 2023," I would not make them argue very long on why, because I don't know if I can disagree with them.
No, I agree with you on that one. In looking at the schedule, initial thoughts, talked about this, is Oklahoma leaves the state 3 times this season.
Yeah,
3 times. And we only the fourth time we consider that the southern part of Oklahoma. That is Dallas, Oklahoma. That is not
yeah,
Dallas, Texas. So there's no reason to even
yeah,
really say it's not. But going to Cincinnati, going to Kansas, to Lawrence, Kansas, and then traveling up to BYU. That's it. Keeping it a buck, Oklahoma and Texas got pretty favorable schedules. I mean, Texas is a little bit tougher. They've got some work in there outside of Alabama, which they scheduled on their own. Playing
yeah.
against Baylor, going up against Tech, um, having traveling to Iowa State, traveling to TCU, but they leave the state of Texas twice next season. Every other game is within the state of Texas for them. So it's not that bad of traveling for them either. It's truly favorable. And so we both get the newcomers. I think, let me see, yeah. They get 2 of the newcomers. We get 3 of them. So we get Cincinnati, UCF, and then BYU
Okay.
traveling on those. And so my initial really was there is a path to no more than one loss. There's a path to two
And that's
losses, and that's it.
and that's with and again, it's going unspoken, but that's with the addition of the transfers, the addition by subtraction, and then another year in the system, and that's progress happening.
Yep.
We saw in those last couple games, the Oklahoma State game, the Tech game, the bowl game, you saw these glimpses. And in hearing some of these other podcasts with Coach Levy and Coach V, and just kind of the what do you expect coming into next year? Every single one of them is settling in. It was settling in, And it was not only a physical toil and drain on these kids last year. It was more a mental drain. You just turned
Yeah.
everything that they've ever been used to upside down, and you put a pressure, because again, it's if you owe your allegiance to someone who's soft and someone who just doesn't stick by their principles and everything like that, if you break it or if they break it, you're like, nah, whatever. But like, Brent makes you want to run through a wall, and I think that does take a toll on some of these kids, is not wanting to let him down week after week after week after week after week, because you're not only stepping up into it's your turn to be one of the Sooner great teams, but you're also, you also are taking part of this new story. So all of that blathering aside, I just, I just see the defense taking major leaps. I see
Yeah.
with Jared Kanek coming in. I think that obviously there's a lot of stuff about 6'5" Dason McCullough sliding in at Cheetah and just turning into a nightmare for people. We've got the defensive end help between Joe Bothroyd out of is it Wake Forest,
Yeah. Rondell
and
Bothroyd. Yeah.
yeah, and then Trace Ford coming in,
Yep.
and PJ Adabara coming in, and then obviously another
Devon
year.
Sears on the defensive tackle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you just look at that, and then I'm going to say something out loud, and you tell me if you don't understand the dialect that I'm using. It's an ancient dialect, but I'm going to say it. The Sooners are going to be good in the secondary.
Hey, I'm gonna be honest with you. When you say that, we weren't bad at the secondary last season. Our
No,
problem was just inconsistency at the line where we were leaving our secondary out there for 7 and 8 second
yeah,
spans, and they were getting cooked at that point. The secondary actually played really good. They were stopping
yeah,
early quick passes. They were playing good. And so no, I am totally with you on that ancient dialect. I couldn't believe that I was even saying the same thing, when I was talking about it. Like, wait a minute, we actually didn't play bad in the secondary last season, and we're getting a lot of them back. Like, I mean, with Billy
he,
Bowman out there, oh, I can't wait. We're gonna break down the position groups. I've already started working on putting this up together. I'm thinking the 1st of March we will put together content around just the position groups, and so be prepared for that on YouTube, as well as we're probably gonna do that live on YouTube, as well as listening here on the podcast. And so, Coop, let's look at the games. So I built the schedule out here, made my own little graphic, talk about each game. Let's jump into each game real quick and give ourselves a dub or an L and see how we feel about it. And so, first off, I'm gonna go ahead and go through the first 3 games. We'll make it quick. We should start the season off 3-0. Any objections?
yes. No, because you see Arkansas State, that we don't even need to go there. SMU isn't the rollover it once was, but it's going to be a W. And then that Tulsa game is going to be a home game. I'm pretty stoked, because all I got is a 15-minute drive to get down to campus, and
Can't stand. Yeah,
so
jealous.
the last two games I saw it at Tulsa were Oklahoma State losses. So so hopefully the last two OU games I saw were stompings. And so yeah, it's 3-0.
Yeah, I agree. That is we'll just skip those first 3. Boom, it's a dub, dub, dub. We'll go into that. All right, from there, this is where the work comes in. We're traveling to Cincinnati. Now, my thoughts on the Cincinnati game is they have the regime change. Luke Fickell's gone. They start to see a lot of recruits disappear. Dave McCullough is one of them that we got to flip from Cincinnati to come here to Oklahoma. And so, because of that, I can definitely see us walking into their house and walking out with a W. What's your thoughts on that one?
It's yeah. I mean, you've got more. I mean, Luke Fickell is a good coach, and watch out in here about 3 years, because you're going to see Wisconsin take that step that they've been unable to take. With they've always been labeled as a slow team. You got a bunch of corn-fed big old boys on the offensive line and defensive line, and outside of that, it's just lack of talent. That's not going to be the case. Luke Fickell's a good coach. Now, what does that mean for Cincinnati? There's not too many people in Cincinnati that were too fired up about their new coach, and with all the transfers out. I mean, this is a game that you picture with the progress that we expect from OU. You expect them to go up there, have a nice 21-7 lead or something like that at halftime, and then let's start rolling in new kids because it's our last non-conference game and they need to get some playing time.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see that. Cincinnati feels like they'll give a little bit of a fight, but with them trying to figure out what they're going to do, I see this one as a win. So back-to-back road wins is what I expect. So start the season off 4-0, and then we wrap up the month of September with the Cyclones, the Iowa State Cyclones coming to town. I almost said Hawkeyes. Cyclones coming to town. Um, I'm not feeling Deckard. I'm not feeling their quarterback. I haven't. I don't think that he's bad, but I don't think that he's great. That defense should still be stingy. I would say it's always got a stingy defense. Matt Campbell knows how to put together a defense. They're consistently the top defense in the Big 12. So because of that, I think we go and just run it down their throat. I'm calling this one as a W as well. I say we start the season 5-0. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, you lose Hutchinson. That's a all Big 12 receiver for a couple years in a row now. I can't remember the big DED tackle that they've got. Just slipping my mind at the moment, but he's gone to. This is probably a team that Matt Campbell actually probably overachieves with, if I'm being honest. But it's at home and rolling in 4-0. You have the home crowd there. That's probably the first really great weather game that the fans have. So it'll probably
Mm-hmm.
be at 11 o'clock, because I don't expect us to not have an 11 o'clock game all season long, because the nice little see out the door. But again, I do. It produces for Fox. They don't really care what we want, but I think we start 5-0.
No, I'm with you. And Will McDonald is who you're mentioning. Will
Yeah,
McDonald the
Bill. Yeah,
fourth. He's not. Yeah, he's gone. Then you got Xavier Hutchinson. Which the way this is looking, man, they've got two players. I mean, ranked in the top 100. Too. Goodness. And then MJ
yeah,
Anderson, which isn't bad.
yeah.
That defense is just too much talent, and it's too terrifying, I guess you could say, from that. And so, yeah, I see that one as a dub. That ends it. We're good to go. All right, now this is when things get tough. Red River first, the second road/neutral site game of the season. OU tries to avenge the 49-0 game against Texas. I'm gonna let you lead this one. How you feeling on this game?
Um, Quinn Ewers was underwhelming, and this is going to be okay. So Texas starts off Rice, Alabama, Wyoming, who likes to play some offense. Then they come back into Texas and go to Baylor, Kansas at home, then Oklahoma, then at Houston. That there's going to be some mental pressure on the Texas Longhorns. Here's what I'm thinking: the best player on their team was Bijan Robinson. He's gone, and so they're going to be, they got a transfer. They've got a couple of young guys. The young guys get turned into men during this game, and so I mean, I think their offensive lines will be a little bit better. I think their wide receiver room has a lot of potential. But again, wide receivers can't catch balls that go 10 yards over their head. And so we're going to put some pressure on Quinn Ewers. This is going to be a different situation. I wonder what the Texas mentality is. From their fan base, you don't see any. I guess what's the word I'm looking for? They don't read the temperature of the room very well, and they're holding that 49-0 over a lot of OU fans. And I wonder what the Texas guys know, because again, you didn't have to. If you've played football at this, I mean, for this long, and you've gotten to this level, and you see Davis Bevel running out there at quarterback, and right from the get go that they're not doing anything to us. You play really, really well. So, and you get very, very confident. So what happens here if they come in potentially with 2 losses already coming into the Red River rivalry? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so here's my say is I don't believe that the backfield is going to be settled, and I don't believe that Quinn Ewers' progress uh, is going to be positive. I think that OU comes back and has a lot of reasons for vengeance.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna stick with that as well. I'm curious to see what Jonathan Brooks and Jaden Blue do at the run game. And if by that time comes up, if we start seeing some Cedric Baxter get some run, because he's a monstrous running back recruit, as a freshman. I don't know
Yeah,
if as a true freshman they're going to really play him, but I think Jonathan Brooks has probably got that position sold up. We'll see what it looks like after the spring game for Texas. But yeah, I'm
yeah,
not. Nobody's very much impressed with Quinn Ewers. The question with him is going to be how's he going to handle the pressure with Arch Manning behind him, and
exactly.
how if the boosters are going to do something to ruin this setup. Texas actually has a good setup. They should be able to compete over the next couple of years with it unless the boosters force a freshman Arch Manning on the football field, and we don't think that that's a good idea year one. Next year might be a different story, but this year you got to let the freshmen just chill at the collegiate level. If you want to get the double digit wins, no problem. But because of that and the embarrassment and stank of a 49-0 game, I think Oklahoma goes out there and kicks some butt. I think that it's going to be one of the old school. I think it's going to be one of the games similar to what we had back in the last five with the Riley regime. And it's going to be one of those close, wild games 30, 38, 35, 46,
Yeah,
40. Nobody's going to really play defense. It's going to be all offense. But I think in this one, it will be more defense than anything as Venables and staff decides that they're going to clamp down defensively and cause problems. I think Oklahoma goes ahead and hits 6-0.
yeah, I do too.
Call
I
it
want to
six and
say
zero.
that Venables is going to have this one circled, and he's going to want absolute perfection from the defensive side of the ball to make up for that last year.
Agree. I 100% agree. All right, we got the bye week. All right, who do you think wins that one?
This might be the toughest matchup we have for the next three. Is the bye week?
I agree. This is one of those weeks where you have to recognize that sleep is the cousin of death. Sometimes, you get too much rest, you might not make it. So, hopefully they're prepared for it, but that they should be fine. This is a dub for us. We'll get that bye week win. It doesn't count on the board, but this will be the week that they prepare beautifully for three games, as you mentioned, could be the easiest stretch, but I think there's going to be a challenge here. First off, UCF coming to town. Uh, hey man, Malzone's been doing some work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he has there, and and I believe have to check my math and my studies on this one, but I think UCF has the is it the largest student body in the nation for a college
Yes.
football program, and it's in Florida. So I mean, you have an amazing crop of talent out there. And there's a lot of guys out there who now see UCF as something, pretty legitimate. If you're not getting the looks from Miami or Florida State or the Gators, then you're going to go to UCF with a chip on your shoulder. And Dylan Gabriel came from UCF. That's where he was under Levy and Josh Heupel. That being said, um, I see the talent gap as too much here. I just don't. I mean, it's at home. If we were going out there, because it is a godforsaken place. We have them at home. I know a lot of people are happy that we may never have to travel to UCF.
Yeah. So I think that yeah, I'm glad that we're not traveling out there. Even though I would have traveled out to that game. Going into the bowl game in Orlando is always fun, and going to a game UCF would be probably pretty cool. Um, I would definitely be interested in going out there, but outside of that, I do believe that this is going to be a lot tougher than people realize. The only thing good for Oklahoma on this one is it's coming after a bye week. So it's going to be an
Yeah.
opportunity to really, yeah, walk in and be ready to go. So I think OU wins this one. Start the season off with, oh God, 7 wins. I hate thinking undefeated this far. I don't like it. I was gonna say the Texas game was gonna be another loss, but it's Texas, and I just can't give them the satisfaction of actually saying it out loud. So Kansas, traveling to Kansas. Jalen Daniels is back. He'll be healthy. I mean, you mentioned this one being an easy one. I'm concerned. There's a game I'm concerned about. It's this one.
Here's why I'm not. Best case scenario for Kansas fans, this is going to be a 50-50 home crowd. OU is going to travel up to Lawrence. That's 4 hours from here, and this is where I played college ball. So it's uh, that defense was made our defense look like the steel curtain. That Kansas defense, they just, that's middle that this late in the season. You've got plenty of film. They're gonna. I just, man, I just don't see anything outside of a blowout on this. I mean, this may be something to where Jalen Daniels runs for 2 touchdowns and throws for 2 touchdowns, but we still win like 62-28.
Okay. No. Okay. I'm gonna be. I'm not even gonna be mad at you on that one. I wonder how they do against Illinois and then BYU at the crib. If those games go well for Kansas, I'm gonna be concerned about playing against them because I think they'll beat Texas and Texas this year. But if those two games don't go well, then I'm with you. I think it's gonna be a blowout and it shouldn't be too hard. It's still going to be dependent on what our defense looks like up to the Texas game. The defense is going to be the most critical part here for Oklahoma, and yeah, that's going to be the intriguing one from there. So, all right, then we've got to start November. We get the 4 game stretch in November as we start to get a little chilly. Travel for the last bedlam for the foreseeable future. Yeah, this is going to be a blowout. I'm gonna be honest. I can see 77-0, like the Texas A&M game. I can see it. O State lost so many players. Even though Gundy does a fantastic job of coaching up the players that he gets, they were gutted. People were trying to figure out if they even going to have a roster next year. Kidding. But still, they lost a lot of key players and a lot of key contributors. I think this is a blowout. If there's a
It's
blowout in the season, that's the blowout.
this is just not going to be competitive at this point. If there's any year that, outside of the Brandon Whedon year, to where was it Broyles goes down, tears his ACL, Landry Jones could do one thing all year, and that was throw it to Ryan Broyles. He goes down, they stomp us. That's probably the that year, and then last year were the 2 times where OSU really had everything in front of them, and we embarrassed them. This just, I don't see how this can be competitive. Bowman was a guy who couldn't hack it at Tech, had some injury issues, transferred, couldn't play. Now he's transferring back here. Is it better than what they had on campus? Yeah, it was, but that tells you how bad stuff was on campus.
Yep.
We always point out Davis Bevel, but I'm not sure it was much better over in Stillwater. But you take that, they already shelled, the defensive coordinator. I know that he's leaving for personal issues, but they were done with him. I think that smokescreen of a really, really good Oklahoma State defense came because of Malcolm Rodriguez and a bunch of 5th and 6th year guys that had been in the same system for a long time and played a ton of football together and
No doubt.
knew how to play sound, disciplined football. And again, that's why they were deemed good. But there were games that defense was giving up, to a bad OU team with Lincoln Riley halfway out the door, still gave up 30+ points. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this one's just going to, if this was in Norman, it would be even worse. But yeah, I'm not going to go 77-0, but if this is a 44-10 game, I would say that OSU did a good job at that point.
I'm with you on that one. Okay. West Virginia coming to the crib. We avenged that loss. That's the loss that we've got to get back. We should have never lost that game. And the good thing is they're coming to our crib. Now, I'm a little nervous about Garrett Green. I like him a lot.
I did
He's
too.
a gamer, and he's going to be a concern for next season because he's got the starting job. It's his job now. JT Daniels is transferred for the fourth time. So that tells you that, yeah, Garrett's going to go out there. He's going to cook. So I don't know what that game looks like, but I do know that what's going to look like on the scoreboard is win by the Sooners, which leads them to be undefeated going up against BYU. What's your thoughts on this game, real quick?
Yeah, so I mean, if you held a gun to my head and you said, "Hey, listen, you have to pick a loss somewhere," why West Virginia? I think it's a trap game. You come off the Oklahoma State game. You have that BYU road trip on the schedule, and maybe you just lose focus. But I mean, if this was in Morgantown, I would be picking this as the upset alert game. Since it's in Norman, I mean, I think this is one of those classics where we stop like a 2 point conversion at the end of the game to win the game or something like that. Like, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be one of the games where you're going to see a lot of, headset and hat throwing by Brent Venables because we're just doing dumb stuff or, giving up 3rd and 18 a couple times. I think it rears its ugly head before we go to BYU. But I mean, again, this is a trap game. I'll still go with OU. Like I said, why are you giving me hope? Because as I look to the next two games, I mean, I just, I feel really good about this schedule.
I do. Hey, the schedule's favorable, man. I'm telling you, that was the thing that jumped out to me, especially as I digested a couple weeks later. It's so favorable, and yeah, this could be a trap game. I didn't call it a trap because it's in Norman this time. If it was on the road, I would have been concerned. Like there's the two trap games I see on this schedule are West Virginia and Iowa State, but the luck of the draw is they're at home this year. If
Yeah.
those were road games, they're 100% traps because Iowa State being right before the Texas game, that's a trap. And then the West Virginia game being right before traveling to BYU, that's a trap. Now we going into the BYU game. I think that's our first loss of the season. High
Uh,
altitude
I am 100.
in Utah, beautiful weather, yet cold, weird environment, weird vibes. I think that that's the game. If any of them that Oklahoma loses, it's going to be the BYU.
I mean, I could see that BYU has been a team here recently that has had more success, earlier in the season, and then some ups and downs towards the end of the season. It seems like
It's very fair.
They've always got a quarterback that is playing lights out and then gets injured at like game 6 or 7. And then so like
Taysom Hill,
it,
yeah.
yeah, Taysom Hill. I mean, like every single BYU quarterback has played in 11 different seasons, but due to missions and medical red shirts and stuff like that, they've never played a full season. So, but yeah,
Good
going up
point.
there, if this was 11-4, this might be a game where you want to actually make the route because I mean that stadium is gorgeous. The only thing I can see here is OU going up there. I mean, this is going to be big for. I mean, it's going to be big for BYU and their entire fan base and everything. Is an OU coming in, and how can we show them? Because they don't have that built-in Big 12 hatred for us or anything like that. But to show out against OU, probably on a nationally televised game, is going to be something
Yep.
that they're going to relish. And so is it a
They got to keep the winning
loss?
streak
I
going.
mean, maybe
Oh,
it's a tough game. I think that the turnaround, the 6 day turnaround until TCU on Black Friday is going to be a little a little crappy. I would say that watch. I see the next game, the TCU game. I see them getting that move to a Saturday.
yeah, and so like for me, like BYU, you gotta remember that Oklahoma's never beat BYU before. Last time we played them, they took out Sam Bradford at Jerry's Circus.
Jerry's
The
World.
first, yeah, at the first game of that stadium being opened. I was there watching
Yeah.
Sam lay on the ground with a messed up shoulder. I'm just like, oh crap. This is terrible. And it was their
Yeah.
silver anniversary, 25 years since they had won their national championship. So yeah, it was extremely weird, and I was extremely heartbroken watching that loss on a very promising season. And so, because of that, I'm nervous about BYU winning this one because they've never lost to Oklahoma before. I think they're
Yeah,
2-0 in their career, and that's where my concern comes in. And then, of course, this is the perfect trap game in preparation for the TCU game on that Friday night that you just made mention of. So we go right into that game. I don't think I think Oklahoma beats. I think we beat TCU. I think the TCU game is a game that we win. It's on Black Friday, which is really weird to me. This is probably it sounds like this is the first time I think we played a Friday night Black Friday game since what the Nebraska games back when Nebraska was in the conference.
maybe
So
so.
so if that's the case, that's what like 15 years roughly. I
Mhm.
it's weird that that game's going to be a 6 day turnaround after a trip to Provo like that, and seeing that TCU the week before playing against Oklahoma, they have Baylor at the crib. Um, yeah, they're not they travel up to Waco for a little bit, and then they travel up to Norman, and so that one's going to be a tough one. I see BYU as a trap, but I think the recovery is going to be TCU. So I think they beat TCU. I think Chandler Morris is going to go out there and do his thing. I just don't think he's as good as everybody's trying to make him out to be. I just don't.
No, and again, Quentin Johnston is at this point it's going to be on an NFL roster. Kendre Miller is a junior. I can't remember if he is coming back or not. But I mean, they just don't have much behind him. Again, they've got a lot of transfers coming in, and this is last game of the season, so maybe they've got more talent. But again, they come to OU. This is a revenge factor. They knocked out another quarterback. But this is one to where I think that OU wraps it up. I think OU is going to have the Big 12 championship seed locked up before this. But I mean,
Hmm.
this is a chance to really just put the finishing touches on the revenge tour.
Yeah,
And you don't get Baylor and you don't get K State, but you get to take a swing at a lot of these guys. And Max Duggan and TCU. I mean, again, kudos to Sonny Dykes and everything that they did, but I mean, they made some kind of deal at the beginning of the season because they skirted by in so many scenarios. And again, I missed shooting a deer because of that stinking timeout on the last second field goal. So we'll see. I mean, this is a little bit of beat. If we're sitting here going to the TCU game undefeated, um, you know, there's that's something that every single person on that staff is going to want, because what does it mean on our farewell tour in the Big 12? We ran shop. So then you go into the Big 12 championship game. I mean, I know that we're not making picks or anything like that yet, but I think that the watch out people are still going to be Baylor. Or maybe even K State. And again, K State loses quite a bit too. So
fair point. I don't see this one. Like I said, I think this was a win. And so, if there's two losses I would give, it would be Texas and BYU. If I had to do two losses, it'd be Texas and BYU. The games I feel like would be the ones that we would take the L on. But I see one loss, and that one loss is a road game to BYU. What about you?
I mean, again, I say that if you had to pick it, I would say either one of those games between West Virginia or BYU. Um, I mean, again, it's if you're making me. I just
Yeah, I got
literally
to make you. I got to twist that arm. You got to
can't
give me one
can't
loss, just
devil's
to be
advocate. I
fair.
can't devil's advocate. I'll
It's
go
true.
with
The
West
devil don't need an
Virginia.
advocate. You're right.
But I'll go with West Virginia. I feel like that's a game to where you've got a couple
Hmm.
of little emotional sandwich between OSU for
Hmm.
the last Bedlam at their place. Their fans are probably going to be going crazy, and you're going to have a little bit of a battle for about 7 minutes, and then we're going to walk away.
All right, we'll take it. We'll take it. All right, let's move into the next part. OU Texas SEC. So we got the official announcement. We've talked about it. OU and Texas will be leaving in 2024. The more details have come out fully. So instead of paying to leave, they're just going to forego revenue at the totals of $50 million each. So $100 million is going back to the pockets, or will stay in the pockets of the Big 12 as well as the TV partners. So, Coop, how you feel about the Sooners making this move early, and do you think it was a good idea?
Um, okay. So last year we have a 6-7 record in the Big 12. If we had a 6-7 record in the SEC, it's a different look. Yeah, the eye test, all that's different. Um, I think that this is good, and here's why: is that ESPN SEC contract starts next year, and to be part of that very first one, it was important for ESPN and ABC to not let the Big Ten start their new deal, first and get a whole year in with this new deal. So is it better for the program if we had one more year in the Big 12? Yeah, I think that that's better for the program just overall, like getting uh, I mean, that's playing another Arkansas State, if you will. But this is good. I think revenue wise, it's good. I think that at this point, Brent has a good amount of what I would be saying here is a good amount of culture built in. He's going to have 3 years of culture, ingrained by the time we kick off the first SEC game. So I like it. This had a lot to do with revenue and a lot to do with money because, again, with Fox letting OU out of 1 year, that's a lot of eyeballs. That's a lot of TV revenue, and that's a lot of money. And that's a big deal. But again, it's going to be more money over there at the SEC. So I'm for it. I'm glad it's over. It literally was one of the biggest, chasing around, between Brett Yormark and OU and Texas. With the schedule being announced and OU and Texas, neither of their university accounts like retweeting it, no graphics, no anything like that. And then for them to say, hey, it's all completely done. The moment they said that, I said, it's about to happen. It's going to happen within the next 2 or 3 weeks. The moment they said that all talks were off, I knew that was kind of like a coach negotiating or a player negotiating a contract. That was just a publicity move.
Okay. Um, I like the idea of going early. I think the teams will be ready. I think both teams will be. The recruiting classes are there. They're already making top five recruiting classes. That's what you need to compete in the SEC. I don't care what anybody says. As long as you got the top recruiting classes, you're going to compete with everybody else in the conference. The coaching is also key, and I think honestly, I think both have good coaching. I think the only problem that Texas is going to have is that hopefully the boosters let Sarkisian do his job, but we'll see how long that goes. If he ends up being the 7-win Sark like he's traditionally been, that could be a problem where he will lose his job. But if not, they could be competing on a consistent basis in the 8, 9, 10 realm. But I think we both have the coaches that's needed to be successful in the SEC, and I think it's going to be fine. So I like the move now. Give the Big 12 one last year, let them revert back to the Big 12 instead of the Big 14. And yeah, let's move on forward. And so let's wrap it up. Recruits, put a bow on it. What you hearing? What are you seeing and hearing out there in them streets, Coop?
So again, there was a plea for patience last year because as soon as Brent Venables was hired, and a lot of people were talking about Jeff Levy. Jeff Levy came in January last year, so I mean, like, he just surpassed his first entire year here. But last year at this time, it was decommitments, and I think that we may have had one or two commitments, and then you saw in the May, June, July, it took off. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think that there are several people that are that are definitely right at the cusp. I know that there's with Michael Hawkins, the quarterback, previously out of Allen, and now he is transferred, but he is he's a raw quarterback. He's a Sooner legacy. I think that if he does make the Sooners call, that's really really good because you've got a quarterback in the class, but he's the first one. He's that first domino. They got the Flowers, the defensive back. He is a guy who has a lot of crystal balls in, and so he might be another piece. And then
Mm.
you get into some names like Stacey Gage, 4-star running back out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale. He's got Oklahoma ties. Michael Patterson McDonald. He is Westmore guy, defensive back, 5'11", 175, has the friendship ties to David Stone, the big defensive tackle, who's now a 5-star defensive tackle. So here's what I'm gonna say, because we could go into a lot of these deals, but here's what I'm seeing is we are literally going to be going through pick after pick after pick, and Miguel Chavis and Todd Bates are going to have so many options when it comes to defensive end, athletic stand up defensive end, outside linebackers. They are in on a lot of guys, and they're all super super talented. And Oklahoma, as a state, has a pretty decent crop of high school seniors coming in. So for that 24 class, so it's going to pop soon. You're probably going to see a Flowers or a Patterson McDonald, or maybe a Hawkins come here before too long. But when it's all said and done, I mean, I think that this is another class that rivals this year's class. I don't think it ends up because we won't have the 5-star quarterback. I don't think it ends up as high as a number, 3 to 5. But I mean, I still think it is a 5 to 7 type of a class for this year.
Yeah, that's that. I am I am a little worried on it being in the 5 to 7 range. I think this class needs to be top three. And I say that because as the move goes into the SEC, if you want to truly compete, you gotta really jump big into getting some of the top players from the backyards of these top schools, and you're gonna need a top probably three class to really show that you're a threat. And so I see that Sammy Brown, the linebacker, 5-star linebacker out of Georgia. I talked about him over the weekend. He's got one visit. It's Oklahoma. And
Mm-hmm.
him coming to Oklahoma as his only spring visit so far, he's already visited Clemson a bunch. He's been at Georgia a bunch. He's there for the national championship. He hung out at Clemson at their junior day or whatnot. If they can snatch him up, get him in
Yeah.
town, bow wow, that's huge. And
Yeah, it is.
so, yeah, that's a big one for Coach Venables to put a stamp out there. He's the main guy recruiting him, and Venables is the linebacker guy. He hasn't really brought in a. Not saying he hasn't brought in talented ones. I think every single one we've got is gonna has a tendency of being monstrous. But bringing in one with big name, big notoriety at the top of the class will do nothing but propel them long term.
Yeah, and you've got Nigel Smith also, who's a big defensive end. He's probably going to end up as a 5-star defensive end. You're gonna where I agree with you tremendously is we need difference makers on the lines. The offensive line, and we need to see the defensive tackle. That position group get stronger, because again, that's where you have to get them on the recruiting cycle, or you have to develop the hell out of somebody. Because here's what happens: if you are a top flight defensive tackle, you don't leave. Because if you're a top flight defensive tackle, if you're at Kent State or Roy Kent State, it does not matter. You are going to get found, and you're going to go high in the NFL draft. And Bill Bedenbaugh really has got some, got some things to do too, because I mean, again, we've got uh, almost no offensive linemen right now that were guys that he recruited and that they've developed and they've turned into studs. We don't have any of those on the offensive line right now. You saw the Moore Trophy award offensive line, and then we've seen some guys just not turn into much. So we need to see proof on the field, and that's another thing is I don't think that this season, if we do throw up a one loss or even a two loss, that's going to help significantly. If we run out another 8-5 or something like that, then you're going to see that recruiting class. Then it's going to be hard to hold on to a top 10 class because it's kind of hard to point towards progress and direction. But again, the one thing that we keep on doing is underestimating the relationship and the connection that Brent Venables and the staff continue to make with recruits. So
Yeah.
I do want to see the difference makers. If we end up at number 6 with 5 different makers on the line, I'm happy.
That's where I'm at. I want the difference makers. I need some players like I talk about I guess the aesthetics behind it and having the players that have those high rankings and just make it all look good and pretty and shiny. But overall, I'm with you, Coop. We need to just get players that are going to be competitive, ones that are going to help us to get out there and be difference makers. We need one of those. We need another freshman. I mean, we need another Adrian Peterson type or Gerald McCoy. I mean, David Stone could be it. I'm hearing that Stoney is there's hints out there and wink, wink, nudge, nudges and things that he's been doing that shows that it feels like he's going to come here. Adding him with the Nigel Smith, we need guys that can potentially come out there as freshmen and really compete and help. Maybe try to take somebody's job. Even though I don't think either one of them take PJ Adebawale's job, I do want it
Yeah.
to look like it. Because when I see Stoney, I think about David Hicks, and I think Hicks is going to be a disturbing individual in the college ranks at A&M. I really
Yeah.
hope that we could have snatched him up, but things don't work out the way they work out the way they're supposed to, and unfortunately, we didn't win that battle. So that's the show right there. Cool. Thank you so much for pulling up as usual. And everybody, thank you all for listening and watching Unfair Sports, the Sooner or Later podcast edition. While you're here, hit the like, subscribe, bell notification, as well as rate us and review us and give us 5 stars. You think we deserve it? Give us 5 anyway and gifted. And so with that, we'll be back probably about a week or so. We're in the quiet month. So we're going to start prepping the content around the positions. We'll start talking about who's going to be playing what in the depth chart, as well as what veterans, what transfers can come in and start stealing people's jobs, and honestly, what freshmen may do it too. So we're definitely going to
Yeah.
dive in depth on the roster before the spring game and see what it looks like. And so with that, we will chop it up with all of you all. I don't know, in a couple of days. Peace.